Hello everyone, I'm Jeff Standley with Standley Handcrafted, and today we're going to be doing a power burn test on candles with 3 different wicks. Now, the purpose of this test is to basically go through and show the differences between a couple different wicks and why it's important to wick your candles properly. The reason we're going to use 3 different wicks is I want this video to try and highlight what the different wicks do as you let them go past usually the recommended burning time for a candle, right around like 2 to 3 hours depending on the size, and not much longer than 4. Unfortunately, that's not always going to go as planned. You're going to get people who are going to burn far longer than that, which is why it's important for you to always make sure that your candles are properly wicked. That way, if somebody does let it go for 7, 8, 10, 12 hours, it's going to be fine and it's not going to create basically a fire hazard. No matter if you have insurance or not, something like this doesn't always protect you. Just because you give customers a card that says do not burn longer than 4 hours literally means nothing when it comes down to different courts. If a court finds you at fault, you could be held responsible for that. Or if they do find you at fault, you will be held responsible for that. Now, that's probably a rare case, but it's always good to make sure that you are in the clear no matter what. You are selling a device or you are selling a product that is a fire hazard. So you want to do everything you can to make sure that you're selling a product that's safe no matter how somebody uses it. Again, just because you tell a customer, don't burn this longer than 4 hours, that does not clear you of anything. Doing this one with the jelly jars, we're using 6006, and I'm going to be using HTP wicks, of course, and I'm using 3 different ones. I'm using the HTP 83, the HTP 93, and the HTP 104, just to show what the differences are when those go from 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 and 5 and on. Now, I'm hoping this one will show a big difference between the two so that we can really get an idea of what happens if somebody lets this thing go for way too long. So let's go ahead and jump into the video and we'll see what happens. Alright, so I've got the HTP 83 in the 8-ounce jelly jar, the HTP 93 and the HTP 104, and I'm going to go ahead and burn all 3 of these. Different wicks in each one. They're both down in the glass a little bit more because I want the flame to heat up the glass a little bit more, which you'll be able to see once we get a couple hours into it. You'll be able to see the glass aiding to the melt pool. So we're going to see the difference between all 3 of these and the difference between underwicking and overwicking in a power burn situation. Alright, we're going to go ahead and let these burn, and we'll check in probably about once an hour. And check, it's probably a good idea. Show the time, 5:47, just starting out. Alright, so we're looking at 6:47. We're an hour into this. That is the 83, the 93, and the 104. Neither one of them have reached full melt pool yet, so they're all looking pretty much the same. So it's not too bad. You see the 83 right there, it's got a little bit on the side. The 93, about the same. And then the 104, maybe a little bit more, but just about the same. So they're all looking pretty identical. Where you're going to really see the difference in these is once it hits like hour 3 and 4. Alright, so it's 7:58. And there is the 83. You can see the 83 still has a little bit of wax. Going on 2 hours, still not at the full melt pool. The 93 is right about the same. And then the 104 is almost to the edge. So right at 2 hours, none of these have a full melt pool yet, which is great. The 83 and 93, very little difference between those two yet. There's a little bit of a difference between, you can see it kind of on the side right there. It's a little bit thicker than the 93. I hope I can pick it up on camera. In person, it's a little bit bigger there and you can tell. Then the 104, and then on camera that looks like it has more, but that's almost to the edge. So by hour 3, we'll see what these look like. Alright, so we're looking at 8:55, 3 hours into it. The 83 still has some wax along the side. The 93 is right about the same. And even the 104 still has a little bit around the edge right there. So 3 hours in, still not at complete melt pool. And as far as mushrooming on the wicks, you can see the 83 is actually mushrooming quite a bit more than the other two. The 93 has a little bit in there, and the 104 actually isn't that bad at all for mushroom. Alright, so we're looking at 9:56. We're right at the 4-hour mark. And all of these are definitely at full melt pool. There's the 83, the 93, and the 104. You can see a little bit of wax buildup on the 83, but of course as that goes down, further down the glass, that's going to definitely go away. Now the 93 has reached full melt pool all the way around. A little bit of buildup right there. And then the 104 is the same way. Just a little bit of wax buildup on the side right there. I will say there's not as much of a difference at 4 hours as I thought there would be. I think once we hit 5 and 6 hours, that might change a little bit more. The biggest thing I'm noticing is the mushrooming on the 83. There's definitely more mushrooming on the 83 than there is the other two. Alright, so it's 10:47. We're going on the 5-hour mark. And at 5 hours, they're all looking right about the same. And honestly, that 93 looks deeper than any of them. So unless I accidentally switched the 104 and the 93, or it could be just the way that wick is laying, they all look pretty good at the 5-hour mark. Alright, so that's it for this power burn test. I'm going to go ahead and blow these out, wait for it to harden back up, and then tomorrow or the next day I'm going to let these go for another 4 or 5 hours just to let them go down just a little bit more. All right, so that's pretty much it. That was 5 hours. I let those go. It definitely didn't do what I thought it was going to do. The part 2 of this video is going to be adding fragrance oils, which I think will make a bit of a difference. The reason I think it's going to make a little bit more of a difference is because you're adding another flammable liquid, the oil, inside the candle. So I think the oil is going to affect the wicks in different ways. So we should see a little bit more of a difference between the 3 candles with the 3 different wicks. So the next version of this, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to do the 6006, the HTP wicks, and I'm going to fill it up 3/4 of the way with fragrance oil to see what they do at 4, 5, and 6 hours. Now, starting out, these wicks definitely showed what they were supposed to. You saw the 83 taking a lot longer to get to the full melt pool, the 93 and the 104. They all got to full melt pool right around the same time, give or take like a half an hour, which is what I thought would happen. Getting into hours 3 and 4, you started to see a little bit of a difference, and then getting into 5, you could tell a little bit of a difference, but it wasn't as much as I thought it was going to be. These wicks actually performed and unless the manufacturer put the exact same wicks in every single one of the bags, there really wasn't much of a difference that I thought there was going to be. And I don't know if that's because of the lack of oil that's in these, but we're going to find that out in part 2. I definitely would have thought, even with the bigger wicks or the 3 different wicks going into this one, that the melt pools would have been quite a bit different. And I was kind of surprised that they weren't. Now again, like I said in the video, I put the wax about 3/4 of the way down, and I stopped these at 5 hours just because there was no difference. I was gonna do, for this video, I was gonna go ahead and do it for another 5 hours just to see if it would make any difference, but I went ahead and stopped at this one, and I'm just gonna do this in a part 2 with the oils so that we can get like a real world scenario and see if the 3 wicks make a difference that way. The one thing that I did notice with these, and the big difference between these, was the mushroom. The tip of the wicks, so the 83 had the most, the 93 was the second, and the 104 had a little bit. Not as much as the 93, but it's almost no difference between those two. And again, I think the mushrooming on those, we're gonna find that out in part 2. I think the mushrooming on that is because there was no oil going up into there to kind of help the wick burn a little bit more. And on the next video, I'd also like to do, I think I'm gonna do this with soy and 6006 and possibly joy wax. I'd like to do all 3 of those. I don't think I'm gonna do all of them at once. I'm gonna do the 6006 first, see how it goes, and then I'll go ahead and do the soy and joy wax also. Obviously, because I have both of those, or all 3 of those waxes here, so I'm gonna do those. And then if I get any other waxes in, I'm gonna try to do the same thing with those, just so that people can see what they look like when they burn for long periods of time. And I mentioned in the video also that I'm almost wondering if I mixed up the 93 and the 104, because the 93 and the 104, they almost looked identical, and it looked like the 104 actually had some wax residue around the side, which it definitely shouldn't have had, and the 93 had a perfect melt pool. I was looking at the wicks, the 104 in between these two, they definitely look different. It's real hard, the 93 and the 104, and even the 83 to the 93, it's pretty hard to see a difference between those wicks, but you can see it. I don't think I switched these up. I mean, I pulled them right out of the bag and labeled it immediately. I don't think I messed them up. But again, that's why I want to try this with the fragrance oils, because the difference in these was almost nothing, which I was kind of surprised at. So again, if you noticed something that I didn't, please let me know in the comments down below. If you'd like to see something on the part 2 of this video that I didn't cover here, please let me know in the comments down below. I'll go through and I try to answer every single one of them. And of course, you can always reach me through any of the social media links that I have down below: Facebook, Instagram, my website, the email address, and of course, you can follow along with a lot of this in the ongoing discussion at the DIY Facebook group, which I also have a link for in the video description down below. So I hope you liked the video. If something like this is what you'd like to see more of, let me know again in the comments down below. Give it a thumbs up if it is, and thank you for watching.